Our next speaker is Mr. JayJay Moreno. Currently, he is one of the Board of Trustees of the Benita and Catalino Yap Foundation, and he is currently the Chief Strategy and Governance Officer and Chief Advisor to the Chairman of the Metro Retail Stores Group Incorporated. Today, he will talk about personal governance and CSR. So let us give him a warm round of applause.
Thank you very much. Now, how do I come after a very interesting and very animated discussion? So this is going to be a challenge. Brother Obet, you just raised the bar so high that it's going to be difficult for the following presenters to at least capture the attention. Brother Obet introduced himself as a graduate of UP Diliman. I am a graduate of the Philippine Military Academy. And it was us who ran after them. There's the connection. It was I'm a graduate of PMA Class 93, and it was our mission in life to run after the guys like, but that was before. We're now very much friends. Thank you to Tony. Tony and I were literally brought together by God because we met in a spiritual retreat. Yes, and that was when we started talking about a lot of the things that Tony and his team have been great in doing. No? So it becomes boring from here, okay? After that very animated talk. I have been asked to talk about personal governance. Now, let me tell you that I am not here to present myself as a very successful, very intellectual guy. Whatever little success I may have had achieved was brought about nothing but hard work. So this is just a story of somebody speaking before you who has attained a little bit of success largely and primarily because of hard work and some bit of structure behind that. And that's why I'm going to talk about something that I personally do myself, which is some form of a personal governance. I'll tell you more about it later on. So before anything else, this is a sharing session. This is not a lecture. My objective here is to lay the conceptual foundations. A conscious effort will be made to reinforce the theories that I'll be talking about with discussions and illustrations largely brought about by my own personal experience. The concepts covered in this presentation have been sourced from various references, so I owe intellectual debt to those who are the authors of this. And finally, it adopts a worldview. Okay? I do have a worldview, and so should you. No? My kids, I am not a millennial, obviously, but I am a parent of millennials. My kids will always say during dinner time, "Oh, here goes Daddy again with his lectures." So you would do that, you would feel the same, and you'll know why in a few while. My worldview is shaped by my experiences. I was a military officer for more than 21 years. I am an advocate, a volunteer myself. I used to be with the Philippine Stock Exchange as a regulator. I was a consultant for a few years, heading a Southeast Asia operations of a global consulting firm. I authored and contributed to quite a number of publications. I am a business practitioner and operator, and I'm I'm a board director, independent committee. I studied in quite a number of organizations. I studied in Asian Institute of Management, Melbourne Business School, Nottingham Business School, Yale School of Management, and my favorite PMA, the University of Luwakan, as I would say. I worked in various countries, and I have basically in the area of corporate governance, corporate social responsibility, and strategy. Okay? So that, in a way, I felt it was going to be important to lay it down to you because my presentation would be largely influenced by my experiences that shaped my worldview of things. I am not a teacher, so please bear with me. I am a son of a teacher, so whatever little that I know of teaching, I'll try to implement. Otherwise, my mom will be, who's a college professor, by the way, will be unhappy with me. So she would always say, before any session, you start with telling your audience what are the core ideas you would like to tell them. So she would say, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So that's what I'm going to do. Although these are the three core ideas. First is organizations are deeply rooted in society, right? They have a moral responsibility to not only function and develop in a sustainable manner, but also carry out certain non-business activities. Because organizations are in communities, they do not only exist just to be able to do business. They have a moral obligation to do something for the society they operate in. Hence, they have to be governed well. The ability of these organizations to contribute to societal development shall be a function of, among others, their ability and effectiveness to govern themselves. It is very important for organizations to run themselves well. Otherwise, they will be a drag in society. And finally, governance systems need to produce results and create value. It is important for good governance to be practiced at all levels, starting with the basic governance unit, which is the individual. And I think this connects very well, I think, with Brother Obet's talk about the need and BCYF's view that governance and CSR and responsibility starts with the individual. So the broad topics would cover social CSR. You will hear more about that, so I'll just browse through that very quickly. Then I'll talk to you about personal governance. And then finally, some concluding thoughts. There are two parts to my concluding thoughts here. The first part will be addressed to the schools who are represented here, and the second part will be addressed to the students by way of sharing with you a letter that I wrote to my son when he went to college. He's still in college right now, in the other school. But my sons, both of them went through the LaSalle just to be able to explain from Kinder 1 all the way up to grade 12, but then they turned blue, as they say. I don't know. Let's see. CSR, I'll go through this very quickly. This is, by the way, a fairly short talk. So I just would like to ground any, and this is where the boring part starts, is to ground everything and anything that I do from the basic ethos that would drive my actions. Now, first, we are defined by our motivations and principles. So some act on the basis of our motivations, and some actually act on the basis of outcomes. So these are two different ethical points of view. One would call that, I couldn't still pronounce this well, deontological ethics, means it is the motivations that define the actions. The other one is consequential ethics. It is the outcomes that define the actions. Have you heard about the ends justify the means? Ends justify the means is consequential ethics. Deontological ethics is no matter what happens, I will do the right thing. Even if it causes and I lived through this because I walked out of a high-paying job mainly because the ethics did not coincide. The corporate ethics did not coincide with mine. I spoke with my wife the night before I tendered my resignation, and I told her I am quitting this job because I am no longer aligned with the ethics of this organization. I did not know where to go. I had 3 mouths to feed, but then again, things happened, and so this is the type of ethics that govern us. No? Our actions are defined by either the motivations or principles or the outcomes that we want. I understand this is a class on, let me just go through this very quickly. There are 2 points of view, you know, the laissez-faire point of view and the political and a liberal democratic point of view, right? So laissez-faire, meaning is French for leaving you alone, they both agree that businesses should be predominantly concerned with profits. However, they differ now because the laissez-faire thinks that businesses should not be taxed. But liberal democratic thinking believes that they don't trust companies that much. That's why they have to be taxed so that the money they get from tax will be used for social good. So again, being rooted in real communities, it is the interest of companies to be institutions of good standing in these communities. So CSR, you will hear more about that. I just would like to underscore the fact that, to me, CSR, in the context of a corporation, is not what you do with profits. It is actually how profits are made. Okay? There is a distinction between what companies do after they make their profits, they give it away. But some real responsible companies are the companies that are responsible even in how they make their profits. To me, that is the real CSR. That is the hallmark of a real company, or of a company who really embraces responsible business practices. When they incorporate, meaning they pay taxes, they are responsible for, they pay the right minimum wages, they take care of the community and everything. They just don't give money away. That's just philanthropy. So let me talk now about governance. I promised you a very short talk. So first, governance is defined by the process of governing, whether undertaken by government, by an enterprise, or by a network, over a social system. So it's a set of rules, practices over a social system. Can be a family, an organization, a geographical area, through laws, norms, practices, language, and an organized society. It relates to the process of interaction and decision making. So governance, this is an attempt to define what governance is. And in essence, it could be described as the political process that exists between formal institutions. No? So just to be able to illustrate it well, there are 4 governance levels that we have to be aware of. The first governance level is, as we all understand, political level. You have the national and you have the local, represented here by the seal of Lungsod ng Maynila because we are in Manila right now. But you get the point. There is also civil society. The family is a governance unit. Associations, schools, hospitals, hospitals, they are governance units as well. Businesses are governance units, both profit and not-for-profits. They are governance units as well. And finally, the individual. Ladies and gentlemen, the individual is a governance unit which suggests that we too need to govern ourselves. And that is, I'll explain to you later on, the process of governance. That's why we call them personal governance. This slide I normally use when I speak. No? This is about linking the individual to results. In my job as a strategy consultant, for those of you who are taking management courses, how many of you are familiar with the balanced scorecard? Have you heard of the balanced scorecard? Yeah. The balanced scorecard was developed by 2 gentlemen, Robert Kaplan and David Norton, right? I worked for those gentlemen. I run their Southeast Asia operations. So I was head of Southeast Asia operations of the consulting firm that Bob and Dave built. I worked under them, particularly under Dave. So what we're trying to do is we needed to link what the individual has with the results of any organization. So first, it's about the experience that we create. Trying to draw a link, no? Leaders create experiences every day. You as leaders in any governance unit create an experience every day. In the family, your parents, when you sit on the dining table, when they deal with you, they ask you questions, they make decisions. That creates an experience. That experience, therefore, leads you to a set of beliefs. Ganito pala. It is like this here in La Salle, or it is like this here in my school in Siena, and it's like, so it gives you now, your sets of experience will lead you to a set of beliefs. Because you believe them, you will act in a certain way. Because you act in a certain way, you get a certain set of results. So see, when you want to change the results, you change the experience. Okay? I'll explain it later on. So as you know, if you study culture, culture is a collection of beliefs and actions. No? So culture is shaped by the experiences. For teachers or administrators who are here, the type of experience that you give to your students actually shape their beliefs in your class. And when they believe in a certain way in your class, they act in a certain way. And when they act in a certain way, you get a certain set of results. So for teachers around, think about this correlation between the experience you said. If you want to see a different set of results from your students, try to change the experience you are giving to your students. And then build a culture within your class. And this concept, this thought process can be brought elsewhere, no? So some more definitions of personal governance. It's a conscious, strategic, and operative form of self-steering, permanent personal development, and so on and so forth. I'll give you a rather simpler version of what personal governance is. So now, there are various alternatives that shape how we govern ourselves. First is our orientation to others. We can be selfish or selfless. In our time horizon, we can be short-term or long-term. In our choices, we could be very tactical and we could be strategic. And finally, in our appreciation of issues, we can be isolated or interconnected. This set of alternatives are very important because this shapes how we are going to plan our own lives and govern ourselves against the plan that we have been put together. My recommendation for more progressive individuals who have personal governance systems within them actually look at a framework that suggests selflessness with a long-term view, with more strategic orientation, and an appreciation that everything is connected. So these are some of the ways by which we can appreciate and define our personal governance roadmaps. A key suggestion that I would like to give for everyone of various age is for you to come up with a personal charter. There was a suggestion earlier on letter V, Brother Obet. Your letter V is vision, right? And I think this is also what is important for a person to have. A person needs to have a charter that first has to have a vision. You have to have clarity in that vision and a commitment to fulfill that vision. Anong gusto mong maging? I think is the most simplest question we ask kids. And that should not be a question that will remain to be asked of kids, no? Anong gusto mong maging should be a question that you will continue to ask yourself. And I'll explain to you how I have done that in my case. Mission. In what ways would the world be better because I exist? This is not being altruistic, but this is again aligned with very much with what Brother Obet mentioned earlier about the fear. About the fear of leaving this world without being significant or without creating an impact. This is part of your own personal mission statement. In what ways in what way would the world be better because I exist? What positive difference do we intend to make by the life we live and the work we do? And then we have to have some core values. And I'll talk to you later on a little bit more about that. These are our life's anchors, the conviction we hang on to. This is the core of our being. They define us. And the fundamental principles from where all our decisions and actions flow. It is because of those core values that I decided to quit my job without knowing where to go in a previous employment. It is because of these core values that I decided to join a coup when I was in the military, because it was not aligned with my personal values. I got into trouble many times because of hanging on and believing on what I thought was right. And I have no regrets at all for having done so, and I will do it all at the same time. I will not tell you what year, because, but it was during my, when I was young, dumb, and broke. No, but I was early on in my military career when I thought that I was no longer serving a dispensation that was for the people. So at greater risk of my life and limb and career, I volunteered to a higher cause. But then I also had to ask my wife and kid to be hidden somewhere. Yeah. And I actually went through the process of saying goodbye to my young wife and to my 2-year-old son, because I was not sure if I was going to come home alive. So those are the things that define me. I believe so. That defined me. I would go through that again. So these are the first critical steps towards ensuring good personal governance, no? Why are mission statements important? You cannot just say whatever. Yeah? Why are you here? What are we here for? Then ang sagot, my 11-year-old daughter would say like, Dad, whatever. So it cannot be done. If you would like to be an individual who would like to live something in this world, you cannot just be whatever, right? Why are vision statements important? If you look at this cartoon, vision statements, see, they're paddling in opposite directions. And it could be the same for an organization, or it could be the same for you. As a person, you have to have a clear vision. Why? Because you will know where to paddle to. Otherwise, you will find yourself working hard but not getting anywhere. So a personal vision should be important. I do have a personal vision, and I think, and I believe that you should too. Okay, let me be a bit philosophical here, and this is why my kids hate me a lot. Because I am the biggest nerd that they ever have, but unlike you, they don't have a choice. They sit with me, and that's why when they go to college, they just ship out and never to be seen again. But I think, I'm a very technical person. No, I do technical stuff for many organizations here and abroad. I have built a career on strategy execution consulting. So I can be as technical as you want me to be. But even though I take a step back, and this is part of my commitment to live a balanced life, is that I also temper my technical execution bias with some philosophy. No? So it's because my vision is to become a balanced person, something like that. So this is going to be a fairly soft touch on philosophy. I decided to show to you the 4 cardinal virtues of Plato. Why? Because these are very important anchors that we can use as reference when you do your own personal roadmaps. I hope that after my session, you would resolve to do, even if it's at the back of a tissue paper, a personal written down roadmap. It is very important to plot your life, right? And the milestones that you have in your life. So these are some of the references that you might want to take a look at, as it has been a reference for mine, sharing with you. So you can look at wisdom or prudence to make sensible decisions and judgments, to differentiate and choose between what is right or wrong. These are virtues, no? Courage, we heard about courage earlier, and fortitude, to face a challenge without cowardice. No? The thing about I like about Plato and Socrates is that they are big fans of military men. So they feel that military men, so it's a bias. No? Military men are the epitome of courage, of heroism, of facing intimidation. To a certain degree, it's true. But it is not the sole domain of military men. It is also, I have seen this, for example, in my wife. It takes a lot of courage to be married to a Navy officer who's been, going around and, doing all sorts of things for the country. So you can see courage everywhere. It is no longer the domain, unlike in the Greek philosophers' times, that's only the domain predominantly of military men. It no longer is ours now. You see courage every day. In the OFW, when I used to run Southeast Asia, it breaks my heart in the airport to see OFWs saying goodbye to their children, knowing that they won't see them after 1 year, after 2 years. Those are courage. And I don't think I'll be able to do that. Because 2 weeks, 3 weeks away from my family, it's just too long for me. So, courage, the fortitude, confronting fear, intimidation, danger, difficulty, that's our everyday. I mean, I don't go to this area that often. When my driver just dropped me off here, everyday commute of these kids or people who work around this area is, in fact, very tough. It is very tough. It's a challenge. Here, another virtue that you might want to take a look at as you draw up your personal roadmap is the virtue of self-control, of temperance. It is very difficult, especially when you're off on your own or you're making your own money and you're not reporting to anybody. Self-control, that virtue, I think, is something that we need to all work hard on. Because it's very easy now to just fall in the trap of being, and then rationalize it by saying, you know what, this is me. I'm the individual. I do whatever I want, makes me happy, so that kind of thing. Justice is the fourth virtue. The justice is the virtue that ties up all of the three other virtues. It's about being fair. It's about being reasonable. So I just wanted to end this particular slide by saying, justice in the life and conduct of the state is possible only as first it resides in the hearts and souls of the citizens. What does that mean? Plato said, and I think it is still relevant now as it was hundreds of years ago, the strength of any state, of any polity, of any economy will be a function of the strength of the individuals that compose that state, that polity, that economy. So we are that polity, we are that economy, we are that state. To strengthen that, we need to strengthen ourselves. And to strengthen ourselves is we need to govern ourselves, guided by these virtues that our hundreds of years that the great minds and thinkers have said. They said, we have to be wise, we have to be courageous, we have to practice self-control, and we have to be fair. All of that, think through it, and look into incorporating that into your personal roadmaps. Second, after discussing the virtues, let me now share with you some of the values that I have gathered. You see, I have a personal mentor. I have a professional and spiritual mentor. I cannot do it alone. My mentor is a gentleman who goes by the name of Dr. Jesus P. Estanislao. He is the founder of the University of Asia and the Pacific. He used to be Secretary of Finance, and he has been my mentor, as I said, and guided me throughout my career. So I cannot do it alone. Okay? So he said, first is integrity. A personal value of integrity means it is not just being free from the stain of corruption. He was telling me, JJ, you're in government, corruption. I was in government at that time. Integrity also means the consistency between your words and your actions. If you say one thing, do it. Otherwise, you will lose your integrity, you will lose your credibility, you will lose your being whole. Wholesomeness or being whole is defined by the consistency between what you said and what you do. That's integrity. The second set of value, you saw that earlier, is fairness. Giving to everyone what is owed. If you work for an organization and you're paid to work 8 hours, give them the best 8 hours of your day. Okay? Responsible citizenship is also talking about being and giving back to society, contributing to the common good. Do not forget about the common good. And it may require some selflessness and sacrifice. Courage, we talked about that later, requires pressing on despite difficulties, endurance, grit, serenity. And by the way, this is what I got from my father. I come from a very simple family in Cebu. Times were tough. And my father will always remind me, while we were growing up, we only have two things to get by in life. One is the thought and the belief that we have each other, and the second is that we have our sense of humor intact. My father would always remind us, whatever you do, wherever you are, whatever state in life, believe in the people around you, and don't forget your sense of humor. So we very tough. It was a very humble beginnings that I came from, and do not forget to laugh or to smile. Sense of humor is important. Courage is fueled by faith, and then you talked about that, Brother Obed. I was tickled pink by your presentation because there was quite a lot of inconsistencies between what you were presenting. Of course, you were presenting it in a much more fun way. This is the boring side.
This is more solid.
No, it's fueled by faith. When courage is focused, is fueled likewise by the hope of the final victory. I remember my first day in PMA. It was 1989. We were in Tarlac. It was tough. For those of you who know what PMA is, it was tough. And I would write every single day, I survived, I survived, I survived. Every single day. Because to me, the final victory was graduation. And I did. The most difficult way to get out of PMA is to graduate. And that was to me the eye of the prize. So that was my final victory. That kept me on. Finally, orderliness. See, the difficulties is not only from the externalities. There will be difficulties that come from within as well, your inner struggles. We need to maintain inner order. It is important to recognize as well our own strengths as well as our own weaknesses. And again, consistent with Plato's self-restraint and self-control, we need to demand on ourselves a high degree of personal discipline. Discipline na po, because we always demand that from others and we do not demand that of ourselves. That is very important in governing yourself. I guess this talk, if it may not be very clear to you at this point, is really towards getting to govern yourself better, hence personal governance. So there are many facets of life that you would need to balance, no? And I'll give you, I'm sorry, I am the only example I could give for this because it's about personal governance. First is the physical. You will have health and fitness, you will have knowledge and education, you will have culture and the arts as an example of the physical side of yourself. Just the other day, I finally got, I got the results of my blood chem. And for the first time in 7 years, my cholesterol, triglycerides, everything passed. It was a major victory because it was part of my personal roadmap. For 7 years, I was struggling with cholesterol, triglycerides, uric, and all of those things. And it was too long for me to do that. So basically, I lost 15 pounds. I brought all of my blood chem results back to normal. That was to me a major milestone in the physical side of my own personal roadmap. Knowledge and education. I am 47. I will be 48 in a couple of months, next year. I still, as part of my personal roadmap, aspire to take on higher studies. So Tony, I'm just telling you in advance, next year, I will be out for a couple of weeks because I've put in an application and I think I've already been awarded a slot to take up an advanced management program in one of the best universities in the world. So,
The one in Boston.
no, this is the one in Barcelona.
I know that.
This is the one in Barcelona. So, and people ask me, why? You already there, you already have this position. But it's to me something, I don't need it to get a job. I don't need it to get a promotion. I don't need it. In fact, it takes me off my work. But it is part of my personal roadmap to get myself to as high in terms of intellectual development. So it is something that I really aspire to do, and it's in my roadmap. I've written it, believe me, 10 years ago. And this is just about the time that it is ripe for me to take on that program. Culture and the arts. So, and that include their sports. So, I play golf. I just took up the sport about 3 years ago. I'm working now on a handicap. So, these are the things. And I'm going to be training for not triathlon, but just swim and run next year. So, those are the things that I'm putting together in my personal roadmap, and I'm committed to do it, and I'm ready. I'm doing it for, that kind of thing. Next, social. This is when family, you talk about association. So, part of my personal governance roadmap is to be a bit more active in BCYF, but I'll still have to work. I'll still have to work on that. There are certain things, of course, work or your profession is part of your person. So I have also plans for work and, of course, family. Now, my family is getting smaller and smaller every year when I let go of children to college. We have a rule in the house that when you go to college, you go out, and then by 23, you're out of the house. So we have the rule 23, that my kids at the age of 23, they're out of the house. So they have to write. We do as a family go on family retreats. So that's how boring I am. We go for family retreats, we have family goals, we have, kids would have some goals and things like that. So economic. I do have an economic, there's a number, there is an amount that I'm looking at, and there's a certain level of, recurring income as opposed to that kind of thing. For example, I said by the certain age, I started to prepare for my retirement at the age of 31. I made my investment for my retirement at the age of 31. Now I have a place to retire. Last week, I just got the certificate for my ultimate retirement place in Heritage Park. So I already have that.
Okay yan, partner.
So the point is, there is, I'm not saying this because, it's a struggle. It is a struggle. Economic, but I said before my eldest son turns grade 6, I would have set aside college money for all three of them. And I, grade 7, hindi umabot eh. Grade 7, pero okay na. So, but there is, again, that discipline. And of course, I had to get support from my wife. And my wife's very supportive. So, economic is one. And finally, spiritual. And that's how I met Tony. Every year, I go on a 4-day spiritual retreat. That's when I reorient my bearings, I reassess everything, and that's when I talk to God. I look forward to that. Nothing could stop that. If I was abroad, I was going to fly back. That is part of my year. Spiritual retreat. Out of the spiritual retreats were resolutions. I'm not trying to float my boat or whatever that is here. But one of the resolutions that has worked for me, and I've done it for 4 years now, is I read the gospel for the following day, every night. No fail for the past 4 years. And I intend to do that. It helps me provide an opportunity for God to speak through me, through the gospel. And now you wonder, you're a military officer, you do this. Yeah. We are capable. We have feelings too. Di ba? Parang volunteers yan. We have feelings too. Do not forget to pray. Do not forget to align your bearings. It's difficult. I was once a college meaning PMA, but I know what it is to be exposed to all of these things, but it can be done. So again, and this is where I could not fight the urge to be a consultant, is when I do plans for clients, I always remind them about VUCA. You know what VUCA is? It's here. Vulnerability, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. In life, we cannot predict everything. In fact, it is prudent for us to assume that there will always be VUCA. No? So, VUCA sets the stage for managing and leading yourself. Knowing the fact that you do not have full control of everything already helps you prepare yourself and then reflect that preparation in your personal governance plan. It does not mean to continually change your personal plans, but it underpins the necessity to refresh it more frequently. My plans are refreshed every 6 months. It is not enough to build your core competencies, but more importantly now, to build your resiliency and reliability. Unfortunately, mental health is an issue right now with many organizations, and probably you know what happened recently, in at FEU. So part of that, in my view, is, of course, there's a medical side to it, but there can also be a spiritual side or a social side to those kinds of problems that I think, in a way, personal governance can help. And then, of course, this is my request for you to consider after this talk. Draw up your personal roadmap. Plan. 5 years, 10 years, draw it up, write it down. Because things happen when you start writing it down. Okay? It can be at the back of your notebook or whatever that is. Scribble something. Scribble something. And these are some of the components that you might want to take a look at in your personal roadmap. The personal charter, the one that I talked about, what is your personal vision, your personal mission, and what are your core values? Be mindful of the Plato's 4 virtues and the 4 personal values that I talked to you about that was shared with me by my personal mentor. Do scenario analysis. Scenario analysis is not predicting the future, but is anticipating whatever scenarios might happen in the future. What if I got married kaagad? Or what if I move abroad? Or what if this? So there are 3 or 4 scenarios that you might want to take a look at and see how would that reflect on your personal roadmap. SWOT. Take a look at your strengths, weakness. Be honest. Take a look at your own SWOT. What are my strengths? extreme good looks. You know? Si Brother Obed, di ba? Extreme good looks. It's a threat. It's a threat. Or ano, weakness, beautiful women. Weakness yon. So ano. But do a SWOT, some level of SWOT, no? And bring them down into themes. Break them down into themes. My suggestion of the themes was the four facets that I showed earlier: physical, spiritual, social, economic. Anong savings ko by this time, or that kind of thing. No? And then identify 3 to 5 objectives per theme. What do I do? In my case, in physical, I said my cholesterol, my blood chem. That was 1. 2, my golf handicap was the other one. And 3, this will be year after next. I will go back to playing guitar. I go back to playing guitar because I lost that. No, so go back to playing some guitar. So that's part of the culture. And I read a few more philosophy books. Just my children would say, "Dad, you're such a nerd." I said, I'm a complete nerd. Yeah, I'm a balanced nerd. Yeah, but I could outrun my sons in 10 kilometers. I still do sub-hour for my 10 kilometers. Below 1 hour. And for those of you who know, part of my physical 2 years ago, for those of you who know the high-intensity workout called Insanity, have you heard of that? Insanity workout is, you have to take that with a doctor's advice because people actually die of insanity. It's a Navy SEAL. I did the entire 60-day program when I was 46. While I was taking a company public, I was taking Metro Public, I did the Insanity 60 days. Try it. It's tough. But at 46, I did that. Then, clearly define where you are now and where you want to be. Because it is in the clarity of the definition of where you are and where you want to be, you could develop measures, targets, and budgets. I would need to do this. I would need to attend an advanced management program in this university by this time. That's why I need this amount of money by this time. Okay? So, and then execute. It need not be complete. Execute on it. After that, take stock. Nasaan na ba ako? Which I do every 6 months. And then refresh. So this is not too different from what companies actually do. Only that you're doing it for yourself. Remember, you're doing it for yourself because you are helping yourself make an impact for the country we are trying to build together. Okay? So I may be out of the military uniform now, but my commitment to country and building it and strengthening it has never waned. In fact, it has intensified. It has allowed me to do more than what I could have done when I was wearing the uniform. But I still am very proud of the fact, when you open my heart, or you open my chest, it is still a soldier's heart that beats inside of it. No? Concluding thoughts. Sabi nila, ay, salamat natapos na rin ito. This is bringing them all together. Since I was a Navy officer, I'll use the ship. No? So, if you look at yourself as the ship, your mission is, what is your purpose? Why am I here? Why are you here? Your vision is where you want to be. Okay? That's the wharf. No? And then your strategy is how to get there. Right? It is not a straight line because you know that by this time I will go to college, this time I have the work, so meron kang ano. What is your game plan to get there? The arrows there, as you see, is your day-to-day life. That's your day-to-day life. As much as possible, stick to what your plan is. Now, there might be times when you have to stray away, as represented here by a typhoon or another ship. You have to stray away because of a certain issue or a challenge, but come back to it. Come back to it because it will lead you to your vision. And you can only work within the bounds of your personal core values. Do not not go away. Even as you plan it, you see, for those of you who know math, asymptotic, no, it never reaches. Do not go and break your personal values. Because if you do so, I tell you, you will be at least my feeling is going to be less of a person. No? So that is a poor attempt at trying to put them all together by using the analogy of a ship. Who you are, where you want to be, what are your plans, what's your day-to-day life guided by a set of personal core values. You now have to, but again, we live in the real world. As I said, VUCA, right? So there has to be an operating context that you start to be open to and to start altering. Be comfortable with not having complete information. Work on scenarios, not predictions. I talked about that earlier. It is not always black or white. Listen to the voice of the customer. The customer here can be a stakeholder, your parent, your teacher, your classmates. Work differently rather than harder. Execute immediately and course correct. Coach and empower more than command and control. Be resilient and gritty. Recover from a setback and move on. Experiment frequently and learn quickly. Collaborate and share knowledge. So some considerations. You need to consider impact of uncertainties and rapid change. You cannot manage something you cannot measure, but also you cannot measure something you cannot describe. Okay? You cannot manage, if you cannot describe your own personal plan, you cannot manage your personal life, in my view. Okay? You have to write it down. Describe what your plan is, your personal roadmap. Describe it. It is only after describing it can you start managing it. That's why the call for you to write down a personal plan. If you want to change results, change your behavior. If you want to change the behavior, change the way you measure behavior. Okay? People react to what is inspected, not what is expected. So you check on yourself, monitor yourself always. Personal roadmap is not about metrics. It's not about putting the numbers, and it's about change. It's about changing yourselves and the way you do things. It will never be perfectly aligned. It is a continuous improvement process. Personal governance is a journey. It does not happen overnight. At least in personal governance, do not believe in miracles. No? It is a work in progress indeed. Then, my last 2 or 3 slides, these last 2 slides is about the school, because I understand there are school administrators here. Schools are major drivers of change and development. You transmit new ideas, you help enrich the culture through work. You prepare the students for life and work, no? So you have a very important role to play. So, equip, motivate, and orient individuals for social action. I know LaSalle is now what, top 1,000? Congratulations. In the world ranking, right? So you certainly are good at a lot of things. But basketball seemed to be not it because you lost to UP yesterday or the other day, right? Well, you used to be good at basketball, but I'm sure you're going to be coming in. Equip, motivate, and orient individuals for social action. And imprint in the hearts and minds of every person what social action is for. So long and short is schools, you have a very important role to play in also building this economy and this country. And as I promised to you, I would like to end with this letter that I sent to my son. His name is Nino. He's now a sophomore in Ateneo. And you know, I'm not only the boring dad, I'm also the corny dad. No? I wrote him a letter, and I know that there are college students here. And it really is, this is a bit of the digression, but I think it's part of a consideration for a personal governance roadmap. Tony, and this is just the father in me. Okay? First is, how you conduct yourself in college will define how you will do in life, in my view. college is the last step before you go to the real world. That's what I tell my kids. You now start practicing the real world. No? Real world also means fun. Real world also means honest and hard work. Graduate studies should always be in your horizon. No? So for those of you who are not yet thinking about graduate studies, think about graduate studies. It should be something that you should actively think through. Grades are important, but nothing beats hard and honest work. So grades, work on your grades. But remember, I do executive hirings. I hire executives. I don't do hire fresh grads. But my instructions that I give to my people is you hire not through grades, but through basically behavior, attitude, and culture fit. Right? For you who will be entering the workforce soon, I look for different things. Grades is one, but not my top. I look for organizations that they've worked on, orgs and whatever have you, okay? Culture fit, attitude, behavior. I'm not going to tell you the school, but sometimes when I used to hire interns, the first question is, sir, do you have parking here? I like, oh, okay. So probably not the type of, They ask for parking, so this one is something that I don't see enough of now, especially in young kids. So I keep on reminding him, be nice. Say please, sorry, thank you at any opportunity. Small words, especially to waiters, doormen, security guards. That is something we should carve out an entire program all to itself by bringing back those basic courtesies that more and more now, at least as I see it, we're losing. There will always be difficult and unreasonable people, like your dad. Don't let them get into you. No? There will always be that. It may come in the form of a classmate or a teacher. Help others. Cooperate. Be a good friend. Try. Don't be afraid to fail. Embrace failure and learn from them. Sometimes kids don't know how to fail anymore. They're afraid to fail. That's why they don't try. Just try. And this is where I think it's related also to one of your last slides, Brother Obet. Aim for significance over success. Be significant. Pursue purpose over comfort. Now, I am glad that my kids are going through that. The orgs that they choose in college, actually, I'm just surprised, and then they go into Days in the Lord, and they go to all of these things. I think it's my nagging and my constant lectures probably are taking root now. But significance over success, it's a very powerful phrase. Be significant. Okay? Pursue purpose over comfort. You may eventually be a citizen of the world. I encourage my children to not only study but also work and live abroad. You may be a citizen of the world, but don't forget, you are a Filipino and you have a moral obligation to help build the Philippines. For those of you who are non-Filipinos, you are a citizen of your own home country. You have your own countries to build. Okay? You can make America great again, but not in the way that is being made. But the point I am making is, do not forget, as the world becomes interconnected, do not forget that you have an identity and you have a country, Philippines, to build. Don't forget that. And finally, pray. You cannot do it alone. It is when things go down that you have to look up. Okay? It's when things go down that when you look up. So it's a time now for a paradigm shift. As you see here, You've always done it in a certain way. What you do here is a stretch. But I'd like you, for all of you, to go and shift your paradigm and do it differently. See, you do not work harder, you work differently, because by working differently, you do not achieve ordinary results. You achieve sustained breakthrough results. So, at that point, thank you very much and have a good day.